Kevin Dee. I'm the co-founder, design director at EVERGOODS. Welcome to our design studio. I thought I'd walk you around and give you a quick tour. Just inside the front door here, this front room area is kind of a gear library. We also call it the vault. This is just a place where we store a lot of competitor samples. We also have some early historical pieces from the brand, things of interest, apparel, military equipment. It's basically an archive of gear. We can come out here and if we're looking at a shoulder strap development, pull down a bunch of backpacks, just look at shoulder straps. How are they made? Which ones are comfortable and why? Which ones are not comfortable and why? Are there little nuggets in here that we can sort of be inspired by or learn from? I have to say there's backpacks on this wall that I've owned for years, and I can still come back and if I look really deeply at a specific part, see something that I haven't seen before. Yeah, a lot of this is from my personal collection. We're just gear nerds here. This is part of our gear nerdery. There's historical items in here. This is like a very early prototype of CPL-24 when Jack and I were first designing it. Even this loop logo, you know, we just cut it out of 2-inch Velcro and I heated up a really hot bar and like seared a line through the middle to create the logo before we had like a part developed to do that. So a lot of concept in here and really kind of like handmade. This is a bag my buddy sent me. He lives in Switzerland. So this is old, like Swiss military. I think this thing is stamped like 1955. It's a pretty cool vintage piece, leather straps. We've got other good stuff in here. This is a messenger bag that I used to wear every day when I rode a bike in Chicago. We've got pieces made out of element fabric that are just kind of testers. We've got briefcases and legal cases up top, all the way down to like little accessories, little pouches, army stuff, all kinds of things. So this is some of the inspirational and research part of product development. Then of course, before we actually make anything, there's quite a bit of planning to do. In this office here, we do line planning. We'll drag samples in here, talk about the product line. What does it look like? What does it mean? Are there holes in it? What are we inspired to make? You know, what does the calendar look like? So a lot of planning, line planning in this office. We can also come in here and have kind of focused sort of breakout meetings. So planning office. Okay, out here in the design space, I really like to play music in the shop. So this is kind of our music station over here. I drug one of my old record players in here. I used to DJ as a younger man when I was in Chicago, mostly house parties. So I got a record player in here. You know, it's the 21st century, so I've got this is an iPhone, but it doesn't have cellular connection. It's basically just a digital music library. We can stream stuff into here. We've had a tape deck in here before, so I bring in music from my personal collection. Everybody in the shop, Logan, Clay, Chad, everybody will drag their records in and we can just kind of rotate them in and out and have different music to play. But I really like having music on in the shop. It's just good vibe, it keeps me focused. So we talked about the gear library being inspired. We looked at the planning office, looking at the line plan, talking about what we're going to make. These are a lot of verbal conversations that then get translated into written briefs. I think the written brief is important. You know, the words can mean different things to different people. I think doing actual writing kind of solidifies those words on paper. Sort of forces you to really define your ideas, and it also makes it a thing that other people can look at and review. So I think this is an important part of starting to understand what the product is. Those written briefs will get translated into just simple 2D drawings so that we're all on the same page. And once those are ready, then we start doing 3D work. This is the pattern making station. So we run Optitex pattern making software on this computer. I know a lot of folks these days are using 3D tools. I learned just making flat patterns on paper with pencil and scissors. So I still like to do the 2D work, and this pattern kind of replicates that 2D work really well. Before we can just cut and make a whole backpack, we start with cardstocks. Oftentimes for me, honestly, these cardstocks will start as just really like basic rectangular forms. We cut it here on the laser. Yeah, so this is our laser cutter, a stock cardstock that is the correct size to go inside the laser. And then we cut the cardstocks. We start them as rectangles, kind of bring the lines in. We can get in there with marker and tape and put lines on it. Take those adjustments, work them back into the software and cut it again. So we'll make these cardstocks round after round after round until eventually they are looking like the backpack form that we want to make. And then, and this is a nice like full size 3D thing that we can put on the table, look at the proportions, look at the lines, and just make sure everything's looking correctly. Once we like the cardstock, then it's time to make the first prototype. These cardstocks, I try to keep them like really basic. So we might make a whole cardstock out of 6 or 8 pieces that we kind of tape together and draw lines on. Once the cardstock is approved and it's time to make an actual pattern, those 6 or 8 pieces get divided up to make pockets and the pocket bags and the linings and the flaps and the handles and all the other components. I've got here cut on the table, this is CPL 24. So this is around 80 pieces. So it's worth the effort up front to spend a lot of time on the cardstock and make sure that it's just right. Working with 6 or 8 pieces is way easier to adjust than by the time you get into a backpack that's 80 plus parts. Making adjustments gets more complicated, especially if they're really foundational adjustments like making the whole thing 2 centimeters longer or something. There's a lot of parts involved at this stage to do that kind of work. Cool, so we've got a cut prototype on the table, which is rad. We need to determine what materials and stuff we're going to use in order to be able to cut it all. So we've got the fabric wall over here. This is just kind of a modular rack that we built to hold the fabric. Everything on this side is approved from production. We try as much as possible to have the actual materials that are used in production sent to and stocked in this shop so that when we make a thing in here, it is as representative as it can be of what we expect to get out of the factory. Some of those things are a little tough, like foam. It takes up a lot of space and it's expensive to ship. So there's a few materials that we substitute in, but mostly we use all production approved materials. This is all production approved on this side. Then this half here is just like development stuff, samples, things that are interesting, stuff that we've requested from vendors that we're thinking about or that looks neat but is not yet in mass production. And every so often we got to go through here and just like clean this out because it stacks up. We've got foams, we've got insulation, there's plastics and more foam. There's waxed cotton under here. Sailcloth is in here, nylon, mesh, stretch woven, all of it. So that's fabrics. Over here is where we store zipper. All this zipper is labeled with the type and the color. And again, we are using the same quality and type of zipper that is in our production backpacks. And then, you know, trims just goes on and on and on. We've got webbings under here. I built this box for webbing. You know, webbing can turn into like a total mess, right? It's like gets unspooled and tangled up like sitting on a shelf. So I built this box. It's kind of like a bunch of reels. And then we can like spool out webbing and cut it. And then when it's done, just like roll it back up and it stays in this box. When we're done using it, it can go back on the shelf. So it's just a way to store the webbing and keep it tidy and contained and also take up less space. I guess another thing I should mention, we do all of our prototypes in black color. So it's a color that's really easy to get stock. It is their highest selling color of product that we make, so it's representative of the product line. And then, you know, it used to be fun to like make a prototype out of blue or orange or something, but then sometimes the feedback from the design can be influenced by the color of the sample. So keeping everything black just keeps us kind of evaluating it all on the same page, same playing field. There's trims in here. This is like all of our molded parts, buckles and stuff. I used to just stock tons and tons of different kinds of buckles. Eventually we just kind of landed on the parts that EVERGOODS mostly uses and we stock those. But then I do still have like a smattering of other parts. So these are just organized and labeled in here with part numbers and stuff, so that sample maker knows what the part number is. Also, that part number can be applied to the bill of materials, and it just all has to be organized. We've got like way more buckles than this in the shop. They're in a big box with like kind of other stock, but we keep enough on hand here for just kind of daily working and then replenish it as needed. This is just another way to take, you know, a set of materials that often takes up a lot of space and gets really messy and disorganized, and we just kind of contain it and keep it organized so that the shop can flow. Okay, another component of the build is going to be thread. Let's look at the thread wall over here. I said we make mostly black. We do some colors sometimes, and we try to submit color correct samples as much as possible. Anyway, our standard thread is a Tex 70 bonded nylon. This is a really typical backpack thread. This is it here. I mean, all of these pretty much are it. So it's strands of nylon that are lightly twisted together, and then the whole thing gets run through like another coating of polymer, probably a nylon. It just binds all the filaments together sort of into a cord, gives it just a little bit of slickness so that they flow nicely, and this is a very strong thread. So that's our standard backpack thread. We also have some apparel thread in here that we use just for basting. It's left over from apparel days, and we just slowly consume it in the basting operation. Basting, for folks that are not familiar, it's like a tacking stitch or a construction stitch. You just use it to just roughly hold things together while you're doing other operations. It is not meant to be full strength construction stitch. It just is sort of like, it just tacks stuff together while you work. Speaking of, yeah, you want to see a baster? Let's go. We've got sewing machines in this area. I should point out everything in the shop is on wheels. So, you know, if there's a project that would benefit from a certain arrangement of machines, we can do that. If we need to roll another table in here to support a bunch of parts that need to go together, we can do that. If this table just needs to go 6 inches that way, we can do that all pretty easily. So everything in here is on wheels, including the sewing equipment. Okay, we got a bunch of sewing machines in here. As you can see, we don't even have this many sewing machine operators in this shop. When you get down to factory equipment, unlike maybe some home machines that you've seen or might be familiar with, plenty of you are familiar with this equipment also, I'm sure, but I'll just talk on it for those that aren't. These machines do one function. So most of these are straight stitch machines, like this guy. So this is more of an apparel weight machine, and it's set up as our baster. So it's got apparel weight thread on it, which is just a little bit lighter. And we run it with a really long stitch. And it's just for tacking stuff together. The other nice thing about this basting stitch is, you know, during the prototyping, if we put something together and have missed a notch or something is misaligned or not quite right, it's pretty easy to just tear it apart and stick it together again. Yeah, so this is a straight stitch machine. That means that it sews a straight line forward and backward. That's all that it does. If you want to get in here and look at this needle from this side over here, yeah, check it out. So this machine also is called a drop feed machine. So that means that the needle just moves up and down, just in a straight line, just up and down. There's no forward or backward motion to the needle. So that's called a drop feed machine. When we get over here to this machine, this is kind of one of our primary, this is a more primary construction stitch. This is another single needle machine, but it's set up for construction stitches. So this is running the Tex 70 bonded nylon. And this machine is a needle feed machine. It might be a little hard to see, but this needle actually comes forward a little bit with each stitch, and that helps to feed heavier materials. So this is set up with a thicker needle, and it's got this additional needle feed that just helps to feed heavy materials more easily. All of these machines run on servo motors. So they're electric. They also have needle positioning. So every time I stop sewing, the needle lands in the down position. So it's just electronically controlled, and it always lands down, which is really handy. They also, well, that one anyway, has cutters. I don't think this one has a cutter. Oh yeah, it does. It's got automatic cutting. So when I rock back on the foot, there's knives underneath the bed here that will trim the thread and release it. Yeah, okay, so this is another straight stitch machine. It's set up for heavier duty construction stitching. We can move up the ladder even more. This is another straight stitch machine. This machine is a compound feed walking foot. So if you want to see, it's got these 2 feet that kind of like, they kind of overlap each other, and they kind of walk the fabric forward. This is also set up with a binding attachment. So it just runs this 25mm binding tape through a folder that folds it right before it gets to the needle. As you can probably hear, this is a very heavy duty machine. And it applies this binding right to the edge. We don't do a ton of binding in our products, but a bit. This is the type of tool that production would use. I would say in our sample making, there's a balance. We do want to have tools similar to what production would use, including like this binding head is good for us to be familiar with, how it works, what the limitations are. If there's complications going around a corner, we should understand all of those things about this type of tool. There are other tools though that really are geared toward mass production that maybe are not practical for making one-off. Want to talk more straight stitch. This also is a straight stitch machine, and it is called a cylinder arm due to the nature of the bed here. What this machine is good for is if you have to get like down deep in the bottom of a backpack or sew inside of a tube, like we could put this sleeve on here. So just the shape of the bed allows you to work in really tight spaces. This also is a compound feed walking foot machine that does this. It helps to feed the fabric. We actually don't use this machine that often. Try to design stuff that can be made flatly and then assembled into 3-dimensional shapes. If the design requires a machine like this, certainly the factory has those, but if we could get away without using it, that'd be better. But we have this tool in here in case we need it. Those are the straight stitch machines. Down here at the end, I'll show you, this is the first sewing machine that I ever purchased with my own money. Prior to that, I was using my mom's Sears Kenmore. So this is an old Juki machine. It is on a clutch motor, so you can hear it when it starts. It kind of spools up. And it does not have needle positioning. So the lifter, a lot of the other machines that I showed you were lifting with the foot automatically on a solenoid. This one has a knee lifter, so you operate it with your knee, and that's what lets the foot go up and down. So this lets the operator, keep your hands on the work. Also, it doesn't have needle positioning, so the needle landed in the up position. So the operator needs to come in here and make sure that the needle's down, and then you can lift with your knee and pivot if you need to. Yeah. Clutch motor. I mean, this is a really sweet machine. I still love using it, but it's definitely a little outdated. But I mean, this thing's a workhorse. It also operates, it sits on an oil pan. All these other machines, the oiling is fairly contained, and they're self-lubricating. Anyway, this machine, if we lift it up, it sits in this pan of oil. We change, in a production environment, you would change the oil more often. In here, we change the oil like annually. So this pump here, the operation of the machine runs this pump, and the pump will pump oil from this pan throughout the head of the machine and lubricate all the parts. And then gravity just brings the oil back down, and it eventually drips back into the pan where it can circulate around again. This is just kind of an older style, but super durable. There's no computer components here. This thing's all mechanical, and it'll run forever, which is pretty cool. Honestly, straight stitch is the bulk of the assembly. We can look at the bar tacker. It's a pretty cool machine. Bring this chair with us. So this machine is the bar tack. It just does like a little zigzag reinforcing stitch. I'm sure that you've seen it at pocket openings, where your belt loops attach on your pants. Anywhere that is going to take a lot of force and needs extra strength and reinforcement, you can put a bar tack. So this is a digital machine. It comes pre-programmed with all of these tacks. So just these sort of like sizes and widths are all on a program number. This is how the machine comes stock. So then what we've done is identified what pattern is sort of a good jumping off point for EVERGOODS. And then you can go into the programming and adjust the finished dimensions of the pattern within some limitations. So we've identified like a stitch sequence and final dimensions for bar tacks, 10 millimeter, 20 millimeter, and 25 millimeter. Those are the only bar tacks we use in our whole product. So I think a lot of the design in this brand, especially early on, really relied on understanding what are the tools at our disposal, and then trying to do as much as we can within that little framework, which I think allowed us to make high quality products, but without excessive complication or needs of tooling. Anyway, let's take a look at this machine. So program number 3, I've already set as a 25 millimeter bar tack. You start it up, drop the pedal down part way, and the clamp will drop. And then once you find the spot where you want to put your bar tack, you press the pedal all the way. And it runs that pattern, and it's done. We can make a little 10 millimeter bar tack. Yeah. So those are just little reinforcing stitches that are used. Over here, let's see, I should turn this thing on. For the element line, we've been getting into more hot melt gluing. Okay, let's turn this thing on. Yeah, so a lot of this, there's gluing operations. Here's just a little scrap. So this is like a film adhesive. So it's just paper on one side, and then on the other side is a really thin layer of hot melt glue. I mean, just roughly, this is similar to like what comes out of a hot glue gun, let's say. So it's a solid. When you heat it up, it'll get soft and liquid and sticky, and then when it cools, it turns back into a solid. So for this gluing, we can, you know, bond things together. This is a layup station, so we've got a little hand iron. We can just sort of like kind of just tack things together and just press them together to just roughly stick together until they get over to the hot press. So then this hot press has 2 cycles. It first comes down with heat. So this is like a heat plate, basically like an iron. You can set it to come down, program the time, the temperature, the pressure. So it'll come down and do its heating cycle. Then afterwards, there's a water circulator here. So there's this other plate, and it's actually circulated with running water. So after it's done heating, it'll turn, and now this is the cooling operation. So this plate then is plumbed with water and is cool. So that brings that glue that was liquid, brings it back into a solid in a really, really flat state. So this just allows for a really beautiful flat gluing. So this type of operation can be used, let's say for example, to glue this flap together. So this is just a single piece of fabric that's folded over. There's glue in the middle, and then it's bonded together to just make this flat, beautiful construction. Can also use this glue to glue patches to the surface or the backside. Anyway, things like that is what this machine does. This also is a hot cold press here. It's a little more low tech. It's just sort of hand operated. So this side is the heat, it comes down. There's a little analog timer on the top. When it beeps, then it puts this up and swing it. And then this is kind of the cold plate. It can come down. It's got mounts here to plumb it with water as well. It's not hooked up, but there's a little track that plumbs water through here. This piece is actually custom. This half is how this machine comes stock. And then this part here, you can see this armature and all of this was built by a local person here to achieve the cold press. We have this stuff around. This is kind of a release sheet. It is woven fiberglass and then laminated with Teflon. So it's Teflon glass. You can even find this kind of thing like in baking, but you know, it just protects the glue area. If glue gets onto it, because it's Teflon, the glue will come off and it peels off really easily. So we have these release sheets to just protect the gluing area. Okay, I'm just gonna leave that. Another part of this element construction is the seam sealing here. So, you know, for the element bags, when we're trying to make them waterproof, you know, we'll stitch these seams together. Then the stitching has all kinds of holes in it where the needle and thread go through. So then we come around on the back side and we trim the seam allowance very small, and then we back it with this adhesive tape. This machine here is the seam seal machine. This is what puts that tape on. So up here is this reel of tape. It's got a membrane in it to make it waterproof. It also has a layer of substrate to give it strength. And then on the back side, there's again, thermo adhesive. So the tape runs through this little course. This is like a huge heating element, and the tape will runs between these rollers. The fabric will run between the rollers, and the tape runs right on top of the seam. And this arm comes in and blasts it with hot air. And so it activates that glue and presses the seam tape onto the seam. And that's what creates this seam sealing. So it can waterproof, make the seams waterproof. So yeah, seam seal machine. Up top here on a lot of these top shelves are just sample books from different material vendors that we use. So we've got fabrics, we've got meshes. Here. So this one, so in these books, this is like all like cordage, different styles and thicknesses and qualities of cord. And so all of these are just sort of examples of what the vendor is capable of making. You can order directly out of this, that exact thing, or this vendor possesses the machinery to make these things. So if you wanted to adjust it or make it custom, that option exists as well. There's cord ends, elastics. Okay. So these books are just full of like buckles and elastics and webbings and trims. Yeah, here's like a color card for different buckles in their different colors. Doesn't matter. We have all of the books on like YKK zippers that show the different slider types, the different finishes that are available, whether it has a PU coating or not, what width the tape comes in. So all these materials have tons and tons and tons of specification. You can purchase them stock from the vendor, or you can really get involved and develop something custom with the vendor, which we often do. Most of our materials are made to order. We also dye to match. So we have a whole area over here for color evaluation. So this is our color evaluation booth. So to properly evaluate color, we need to get rid of all the other light sources. Close this. So inside this box now is like a industry standard gray, and the quality of light that's inside here is also industry standard and controlled. So this is D65 lighting. This lighting attempts to sort of reproduce daylight in a more kind of northern climate. So it's a little bit warmer color of a light. This is what we use for our products. It's fairly industry standard. If your clientele is more equatorial, there's also D50 lighting. So this attempts to replicate sunlight, but it's just a little bit warmer. There also are quality of lighting for like retail environments. If you make like packaging for bubble gum and your product is going to be seen under the lights at Target at the point of sale, there's a specific light for that to evaluate color. So we use D65. We receive, these are called the lab dips. So from our fabric vendor, we'll specify the color that we want using the Pantone books, which I don't have in here. I got an example here. Here's, right on the top of here, this would be like a Pantone swatch. So there are big libraries of this color, and then the color has like a code name. So then that code name you can use to communicate with vendors all over the planet. They will try to dye your fabric to that color. This is a cool little chemistry lab they use, and then they'll send you the different dips. So then these are all just slightly different versions of that color. We receive this, we evaluate it under the light, we compare it to the standard. We can make comments about it needs to be a little more yellow, it's a little too dark, things like that, and then eventually pick one. And then that chemistry will be the chemistry that's used when they dye the fabric for production. So this is textile. We do this for buckles, webbing, zipper. All the materials have to all be dyed to match and color approved. The other thing that complicates it is that different materials have different like surface textures. Some of the nylons are a little shiny and they bounce light. Maybe the stretch woven is matte looking and it doesn't bounce as much light. We have buckles that are plastic. All of these different materials will sort of reflect light and appear from a color perspective to be slightly different. So getting a backpack that's all accurately color matched is actually a huge effort. I think actually this is one reason that a lot of brands don't do it. It's really challenging to do. Other thing that this booth can do is detect things that are like UV sensitive or fluorescent. So inside here, we can see if there's optical brighteners or fluorescent items. This one's got fluorescence in it. This is also important like for military work. they don't want optical brighteners in their dye to give it less visual signature. So all of this stuff just goes down the rabbit hole. But that's color evaluation. I think there's a lot of question about backpack volume on the internet. I'll just say right now that calculating volume here is, calculating volume of backpack is pretty subjective and pretty difficult to do very consistently. What we do in here actually is an ASTM standard. So I built this instrument. So this is just a big volume cylinder. This is liters on the side. So what we do, we'll just do one real quick. Okay, so we'll pour out those balls. There's a backpack hanging here. This is just like a weird little tester that we made. So then what we would do is open up the bag and just fill it with these balls. Okay. I think for the purposes of our demonstration, that is sufficient. If there were accessory pockets, you could get in here and fill all the accessory pockets individually. I would say also, if you could like tamp this down and fill it some more, tamp it down and fill it some more. This actually could use a little bit more fill, I can see, but our standard in here is that we want to set this backpack on the table and it should sort of look like it's the right shape. If it looks like it's just like stuffed like a sausage, it's probably overfilled. But this is where a lot of this variability comes in. How full is full enough? Did you do all the accessory pockets or not? These kind of things all can add variance to this approach. But anyway, we're gonna say that's full. So we come back over here to the cylinder. All the balls in there. Let me top it off with this little guy. Okay, so I'm gonna call that like 17, 18 liters is what we put in there. It looked like it needed a little more. This bag might be closer to 20. But that's how we test volume. Just know that every brand is doing this or some version of this, or maybe some totally different method to determine volume. The other thing that I would say is that there are also marketing implications. Like if you said this thing measured 23 liters, that might just be like a weird number to pin on your backpack. Marketing may say, we already have a 20-liter backpack, we need a 25-liter backpack. Rather than go all the way back to the drawing board and redesign the whole thing, a lot of brands will just call it the number that sort of fits into their product line that they want to sell. I'm not saying this is wrong, I'm just speaking to the realities of measuring backpack volume. There's a lot of variables and other concerns. That's how we do it in here though. Our brand gives ourselves plus or minus 2 liters as just as like a tolerance, just in recognition of the variables involved and also in recognition of the marketing targets. So, but we are within 2 liters of what we measured here. All right. I think the last thing that I would like to talk about in this room is the tech pack The tech pack is the collection of documents that we submit to manufacturing when all of this process is done. When I was a younger person and a sample maker, I felt like making the prototype was the ultimate thing that could be done, and that if we could make one, that was it, that was the top, that was the pinnacle. I think what I've realized now actually is that the output of this room needs to be all of the information and documents necessary to go to mass production. So, in the later stages, after all this process is done, we build the construction document. This is just a series of drawings that show the factory how this product is assembled. We do this based on sub-assemblies from the samples that we make in this room and the later samples. We shoot photos, use those photos as the basis for these illustrations. So they're just illustrations of the parts that are to be made with call-outs about seam allowances, measurements, and specification. So this goes through the whole backpack. This is the manual about how to assemble CPL 24. So this, combined with the digital pattern, and then combined with the bill of materials, which I don't have in my hand, but it's basically a stack of spreadsheets that say what all the materials are, what all the cut lengths are, how much material is consumed so that you can order the right amount, what color every material is, who to order it from, what it costs. All of these things are all bundled together into the bill of materials. Then we also send a physical sample, so a finished example of exactly what's supposed to be done. And then for any parts of the build that seem a little bit complicated, we will send sub-assemblies. So we send portions of the backpack that are not fully finished so that the people on the other side can see under the hood and see how the thing goes together. So finished sample plus sub-assemblies plus digital patterns plus construction document plus bill of materials equals the tech pack, and that is the ultimate output of this room. That's what gets it to mass production and makes it into a product that people can enjoy. I think I'm done talking. Thanks for hanging out in the studio with me. See you later.